Shalom. Giving all praises to Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai. Double honors to the apostles, elders of Great Millstone. May Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai's peace be bestowed unto you, hopefully elect. I'm your brother Yahweh Call from the Great Millstone, Orlando. And just through the Spirit, I wanted to touch on these two bills coming out of Florida, which, for those that don't know, Florida is pretty much the testing ground for certain policies that they want to extend nationwide. So I thought this would be needful, Lord's will to the flock, to whom it may concern. And me just personally, I have a bit of an eye for these type of things, because, just Florida alone, I'm always like, man, there's a lot of camps. There's a lot of brothers. There's a lot of camps in Florida. And again, Florida being that testing ground for laws, for policies that they want nationwide. So again, I just thought this would be needful for the flock. But getting into these two articles, which both of these bills, they pretty much coincide with one another, as we're going to Lord will get into. But and again, Lord willing, JP forgetting, but Lord's will, I will put these in case you decide to look into this on your own. Hopefully, I remember Lord's will. Put these articles in the description, just for a little guidance. If you want to look into it, these two articles going into these bills. But first here, got off of Tallahassee.com. It says Florida considers defining domestic terrorism, banning sharia law. Right, so getting into this, I'm just trying to get to the points, Lord will, the important parts. It says Florida lawmakers are raising concerns whether a bill defining domestic terrorism could infringe on constitutional rights to free speech and religious expression. State senators on February 3rd, which was just a few days ago, voted along party lines in the Judiciary Committee on a bill, SB 1632. So what does this bill go into? We're reading on. It says, the measure would prohibit courts from applying religious law, specifically mentioning the sharia law, and would establish a process to designate domestic terrorist organizations in Florida. Now, on the surface level, of course, it's going to go into, well, as it says, let's read this part. The primary concern was whether the measure specifically was targeting Florida Muslims. And you got to pay attention to these buzzwords. All right. It says raised by advocacy groups like Florida's chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations. And we know, or should know by now, the Job 9:24, Esau, how he's trying to, for one, demonize the ministry, lump us all into the category of, being terrorists and things of that nature. All right, we should know this by now. All right, so of course this is on the surface level, right? But when you go into it, being in the spirit, hey, the scripture said we're not ignorant of Satan's devices. We know what's going on. So it says the group, which Governor Ron DeSantis labeled a foreign terrorist organization in December, spoke at the Capitol also on February 3rd. Its Deputy Executive Director, Heba Rahim, warned that this measure was an extreme overreach against the federal government's standards of identifying foreign and domestic terrorism. But bill sponsor Aaron Grawl or Vero Beach contended the measure was not about speech or punishing speech, but about addressing criminal conduct saying it targets conduct, not belief, and and protects free speech, religious liberty, and due process, which, as we're going to go into because the next bill, the SB 1634, is pretty much contrary to this here. But nevertheless, man, going into this bill, because again, when you go into it, some of the meat of this bill that they're proposing, because when you go into it, again, man, pretty much, because like I said, this is supposed to be a bill. A part of this bill is to target the conduct and not the actual belief. But again, when you read between the lines about this bill, it goes into pretty much, man, any of these, religious groups or organizations or whatever, whoever they deem as a terrorist, whoever they put on this list under this bill, pretty much anyone, just to speak plainly, anyone speaking out against the government, I'll put it like this. Because again, going into this, like I said, targeting the conduct, basically how brothers teach. Brothers can be rough around the edges. Mind you, we're telling Esau in this kingdom that he's going down, right? We grab this real quick. Because again, this is all surface level, right? You want to target the conduct, but not the actual, the belief and things of that nature. Of course, they got to make it look pretty, right? But just through the spirit, again, when you look into it, when you dissect it, man, pretty much, man, how brothers teach, throughout the different camps, especially the One West camps, right? Brothers out there on the highways and byways, again, telling the so-called white man that he's going down, he's going into captivity, all these things, right? Isaiah 13. I'm going to start at 1. It says, the burden of Babylon, which Isaiah the son of Amos did see, right? Because this truth is a burden to the world, and the prophets are those that the party poopers, so to say, although for the most part, at least when it comes to the men of the Lord, because, these other camps, they do be overdoing it and whatnot. But again, this is why they're going to lump us all. All right. They're not just going to come after the prophets, but they're going to lump us all into one category. All right. Because again, certain of these camps, man, they do be doing too much at times, handing out flyers, because, in a part of this bill, I don't know if it's going to mention it, but it goes into anyone that they see coercing, coercion and things of that nature. They're going to be lumped under this bill. They're going to be labeled terrorists and things of that nature. But like I said, man, just overall, just in a nutshell, man, how brothers teach, man, this is what, this entailed in this bill. All right. But of Isaiah 13:2, lift up the banner upon the high mountain. Again, this government. All right. Esau, again, he's going down. It says, exalt the voice unto them, shake the hand, that they may go into the gates of the nobles. And as I mentioned in this bill, all right, that conduct, like I said, overall, man, just how brothers teach, right? Little by little, Esau, the walls are closing in. We know the days of famine are at hand. All right. We know and understand the days when going out there on the highways and byways, we know the Lord's going to ultimately shut this thing down. And we're seeing the groundwork being laid for it little by little. So it says, Grawl further focused on provision that says judges cannot enforce provisions of religious law, naming Sharia, Slakia. She says some courts across the country did uphold Sharia law, although the Senator Tina Polsky Boca Raton said that she has never heard of that. The legislation has considered but not passed Sharia bans, some not even mentioning the word, at least as far back as 2013. Constitutional law experts then said courts already can't apply any foreign or domestic law that is unconstitutional. Senator Rosalind Osgood de Tamarack noted that she's heard concerns from Muslim people in her district and questioned that particular provision. To quote, "I'm not an attorney, but that would seem to be unconstitutional. How could we interpret a religious law or a law from a foreign country? I thought that was already unconstitutional," to unquote. It says the bill also says an organization could be designated a domestic terrorist group if a domestic security chief of Florida finds that it engages in activities dangerous to human life, intend to intimidate or coerce a civilian population, influence the policy of a government by intimidation, or affect the conduct of government by mass destruction. So you see, like I said, all things, all these attributes, or these qualities, these traits, whatever you want to call it, man. These are all traits of the men of the Lord. Now, again, granted, overall, we don't go out there and shove anything down anyone's throats, But like I said, something as simple as what these other camps do, they go out there passing out flyers, right? Out there with the microphones, all these, it could be considered intimidation tactics, coercion, right? Things of that nature, man. As has been done in the past before, the prophets, man, they were, considered insurrectionists, and all sorts of things of that nature. So when you connect the dots and just through the Spirit, again, you see the groundwork being laid. All right, it's going to get harder to do the work, man. It's going to get tougher, tighter. All right, we're going to start feeling the squeeze more and more. As I did a video on this the other week, man, hey, being an Israelite, man, it's not going to be pretty. Because believe it or not, you're going to have these carnal Israelites going out there, so-called prophesying, as we've seen back in the past, right? So-called prophesying during protest and things of that nature, right? But hey, we see the groundwork being laid, man. All right, we see this groundwork being laid now. Again, this is going into the SB 1632. Now, to jump to the SB 1634, and I'm gonna just read it briefly. I'm gonna just get the main part. When this thing loads up, because with this being said, with these bills, man, because Esau, he has a lot of projects out there, man. He already has it set up to where they're already watching people. All right, they know what everyone's watching on YouTube. They got us all on the list, right? They know our watch history. Anyone that likes the videos or anything like that, anyone that's lumped into this, hey, you could be, because they're going to go after schools and universities and things of that nature. People are going to get reported to the ICE and all type of stuff. If you're involved in this, if you're caught up, if you so much, again, if Esau goes through your search history and you so much as like the video, hey, you could be reported. They can come after you, right? Again, hey, being an Israelite, man, it's not going to be pretty, man. It's not going to be pretty. So this is that groundwork that's being laid, man. All right. You can be if you just so happen to donate, donate to one of these causes, right? You can get locked up, man. You can be. Well, we know it's going to get to a point where you could be held to the full extent of the law, and in most of the cases, put to death. Like it says in Revelation, And as a matter of fact, before I grab that, I'm going to grab this, or I'm going to read this. So going into this SB 1634, right, I'm going to just read this part here. It says, the summary, it says that CSSB 1634 creates public records and public meeting exceptions related. I can read it again. The SB 1634 creates public records and public meeting exceptions related to designation of certain organizations as domestic terrorist organization or foreign terrorist organization as provided in this bill, as provided in the SB 1632. So pretty much if you're under the SB 1632, well, this 1634, as it goes on, reads, it says the bill protects from public disclosure records which will reveal information critical to state or national security. The bill also creates a public meetings exemption to provide that any portion of a meeting which would reveal information critical to state or national security is exempt. The exemptions are subject to the Open Government Sunset Review Act and will stand repealed on October 2nd, 2031, unless reviewed and reenacted by the legislator. And Lord willing, we don't have that long. It says, because the bill creates it creates a new public records and public meeting exemption. It requires a 2/3 vote of the members present and voting in each house of the legislation for final passage. The bill provides the effective date is the same date that the SB 1632 or similar legislation, if adopted, takes effect. So basically what the 1634 goes into is, as it mentions, as it said again, I'm going to read the second part of the summary again, the second paragraph of the summary. It says the bill protects from public disclosure records which would reveal information critical to state or national security. The bill also creates a public meetings exemption to provide that any portion of a meeting which would reveal information critical to state or national security is exempt. So basically what this bill is going into, if you're categorized under this bill, well, as far as the 1632 bill, this bill will pretty much, man, they can detain you without any due process when you go into it, right? They can label you and the records will be kept from the public. They don't have to tell you why. Similar to what we've been seeing with what's going on with ICE, man. Northern Kingdom specifically, man. Just getting taken, getting kidnapped. Never making it home to their families and things like that. They could basically, man, just if you're labeled under the 1632 bill, man, they could just under this bill they could just take you without due process, no questioning, right? And like it says, to protect the public, right? Well, hey, they don't have to tell you why. They can just take you. They don't have to tell you why. They don't have to give an explanation or anything like that. So this is something that they've been talking about this week. And hey, everyone has already sees for the most part. People see past the smoke and mirrors, man. This is a fringe of what they, because people are going to find out real soon. Hey, there is you don't have no rights. That's what these people are about to find out. Because that's the main thing right now. What about our rights? What about our amendments? The First Amendment, and people are about to find out that you don't have no rights. All right. And again, this is why Esau, he has to package it up, make it look pretty. All right. But nevertheless, Isaiah 10, man, the unjust laws and decrees. Right. I was going to grab this in Revelation. Revelation 13 and 11. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb. So both these bills, of course, on the surface level, is gonna they're gonna, like I said, paint it up, make it look pretty, right? On surface level, hey, we're gonna go after that terrorist, right? On surface level, it looks good, right? So that's these two horns speaking like a lamb. They tell you what you want to hear. They tell you what sounds good. But as it says, and he spake as a dragon. All right, and as has been said for decades, a draconian laws, draconian measures. Like I said, you could be held to if you so much donate to one of these causes, or if you found out to be donating, if you so much as like a video, man, and you could be held to the full extent of the law. That's a part of those draconian measures going back into the time of the Greece. The time of the Greeks, man. All right. For the most pettiest crimes being held to the full extent of the law, and this is what's coming back. So nevertheless, man, hey, the squeeze, man, is gonna be felt more and more. All right, more and more. Esau, he's coming down with great wrath while everyone is distracted with the Super Bowl and all these distractions going out. These are the type of things are being put into place right under the people's noses, right under the people's face. And like I said, I just through the spirit, I try to, I like to keep an eye on these things. Because like I said, man, especially in Florida, man, there's so many camps. You got Orlando, Lake City, West Palm, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, if I'm not mistaken. There's just, you got Tampa, man. There's so many camps in Florida, man. And like I said, Florida is one of those testing grounds for the policies that they want to have nationwide. So, just something I thought, it would be needful, useful for the body, Lord's will. But these, right under people's noses, man, these things are taking place, so again, Lord's will, we'll leave these links into the articles if you want to look into this and just to help you further look into this, Lord's will, and I don't forget this time. But hopefully this was edifying. Giving all praises to Yahweh Bashim Shai. Shalom to you, hopefully, like.